Thank you very much, sister, for your informative and inspirational speech. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help you and help the youth in their endeavor, in their organization. And I encourage everyone to support them, please. They are the leaders of the next generations. They are truly leaders right now. But in just a few years, inshallah, you will see them that they're full-fledged. And they are the ones who will be in charge of this place and the community. So we need to support them. Today morning I saw Alawiya Maha was making some little pizzas. I wonder what has happened to those pizzas. I hope, the youth didn't eat them, if I'm right. Anyway, Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة يا ليتنا كنا معكم سيدي فنفوز فوزا عظيما بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد كرمنا بني آدم وحملناهم في البر والبحر ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا صدق الله العلي العظيم. This ayah, number 70 of Surah Al-Isra, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, surely we have honored children of Adam. We carried them on the land and on the sea, and we have preferred them above many of those whom we have created. The topic of tonight's lecture is engendering human rights cultures in the Islamic societies, Islamic communities. As we look at the tragedy of Karbala, and we see how gruesome and tragic it was not due to the magnitude of this tragedy, nor the number of the victims who have perished and lost their lives, nor the bad treatment of the captives, nor the mutilated bodies, decapitated bodies, the drenched bodies with blood of those victims that took place in Karbala. That gruesome nature of the tragedy is not explained by the magnitude of the killing. Although the killing was gruesome enough, was horrendous enough, yet it was not due to this fact. In fact, there are terrible incidents that took place, on the day of Ashura and right after the day of Ashura. For example, according to one narration, it says that the army commander of Ibn Ziyad's army, Umar ibn Sa'd, he distributed the heads of the companions of Imam Hussein alayhi salam who were murdered, were massacred, in Karbala to the tribes. So each tribe who participated against Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they would take those heads as a gift to Ibn Ziyad. They go back to make it as a witness, as an evidence for their participation in the battle. One narration says that after they run out of all of those heads, so all those companions their heads were severed. Now, all of a sudden, they were searching for more and more of those who have been killed. All of a sudden, they realized that there was a 6-month-old baby who also lost his life. So they, kept searching for that baby who was killed in the battle. When they found him, they again beheaded him, and they took the head of him toward, Ibn Ziyad. Despite this gruesome effect, this gruesome nature of dealing with the victims, still the obscene nature of this tragedy, the abhorrence of this tragedy does not come from the magnitude of this or the maltreatment of the enemy to the victims. Because when you look at throughout history, you see there were so many terrible tragedies that took place. So many people have been killed, in a gruesome ways. Even up to now, the more the technology becomes advanced, the more gruesome the killings are. Using chemical weapons, using biological weapons, using nuclear and atomic weapons. In a matter of seconds, tens of thousands of people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, evaporated. They were completely evaporated and extinguished from the face of the planet. So they were, gruesome crimes and atrocities against humanity. Up to now. Nowadays, in 4 or 5 states in the United States, they use electric chairs for electrocutions, killing people by electrocutions. Just recently, you saw the devastating result of chemical weapons used in Syria. Whoever used it, whether the government or the other side, so many people perished, they were killed. All of you have noticed that person who rips the chest of the soldier and take his internal organs and chew on them. Those are all gruesome. Those are all terrible things. So what has happened in Ashura, when we commemorate the tragedy, is not due to the fact, although it was horrendous, although it was terrible, although the Imam alayhi salam in the battle received more than 1,800 strikes and stabs, yet that does not explain the true tragedy of Karbala. So what does it explain? Why we celebrate after so many years? We grieve with sorrow that tragedy of Karbala. It has to do with the caliber, with the stature of the victims. Those who perished, who were those victims? Those who were killed, those their bodies were mutilated, those who have been taken to captivities. Who are those? Let me give you an example to understand the magnitude, a lively example. Sometimes we physically punish our children, for example. We tweak their ears, we spank them, we hit them, to reprimand them. Would you do the same thing, for example, God forbid, with your parent, with your mom? For example, someone tell you, what did you do? Said, nothing. The same way that I tweak the ear of my child, I also slapped my dad or my mom. It is nothing, just a simple slap. Would it be the same caliber? Would it be in the same magnitude? Or that would be considered horrendous. Although beating, and physically punishing children is not advocated, it is bad. But which one? But both are considered to be equal. Why they're not equal? Because the father has much higher stature and caliber, the mother as well. than the children. The same thing. In Karbala, they were not only mere victims or some sort of family of the prophets of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. You see, Imam Hussein in the battle of Ashura, he would stand in front of the enemy, would tell them, Ansibuni man ana. Tell me, do you know who I am? Search the entire world. Would you see a grandson of the Prophet, that is alive nowadays on the face of the planet? You would not find it. The poet, in his beautiful poetry, he says, قَتَلُوهُ بَعْدَ عِلْمٍ مِّنْهُمُ أَنَّهُ خَامِسُ أَصْحَابِ الْكِسَى. They had no doubt whatsoever in their mind that this man is the fifth member of Ashab al-Kisa. He's the fifth member of, Ahl al-Bayt alayhim as-salam. Times and again, the Prophet, peace be upon him, in front of the companions, in front of everyone, would say this hadith is narrated in the Sunni books before the Shia books, who said that in my ascension to the heaven on the day of Mi'raj, I noticed written on the leg of the throne, Inna al-Husayn misbah al-huda wa safinat al-najat. So they had no doubt whatsoever who was Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yet they violated his sanctity. Did they have any doubt that Zainab and Kulthum were the granddaughter of the Prophet? No, they did not. They knew very well that those were the granddaughters of the Prophet. Yet they took them, in captivity. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he encounters Yazid in Sham, after the caller for the adhan goes to the adhan and declares the adhan, when he get to the word ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The Imam alayhi salam looks at Yazid and tells him, Ya Yazid, hada Muhammadun jaddi am jadduk. Is he my grandfather or your grandfather? Would Yazid doubt who was Hussein was? No, but they have violated the sanctity of this man, the sanctity of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. The sanctity of Rasulullah was obliterated and was desecrated. You see, God give us an example. Due to a certain animal, a single animal, God would pour his wrath on an entire village, entire town, destroys the entire town. He takes the life of the elderly, the young, the adults, the children, the infants, the animals, due to a killing of a single animal. كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها. Once they killed, and it was only one person, by the way, one person who killed that animal, that camel, a single camel. God attribute this camel to himself, says Naqatullah. This belongs to God. So much sacred, so much honored. It says that when they kill that animal, what does Allah say? It says فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ بِذَنْبِهِمْ فَسَوَّاهَا. Raised it to the ground, destroyed the entire town. Now imagine, the grandson of the Prophet, part of the 5 holy members of Ashab al-Kisab, being the master of the paradise, of the youth of paradise, yet they violate his sanctity. Not only him, his household, his women, his children, the daughters of the Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. At that time, if they would take the DNA of Zainab, Kulthum, they would notice that 1/4 of that DNA belonged to the Prophet, peace be upon him. Was the biological trait of the Prophet. Yet, that again is not tantamount to the tragedy of Karbala. In the eye of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does it do? Hussein alayhi salam was the perfect man, was the perfect human in the eyes of God. A single human, a tiny little human, get killed for no reason. In fact, you have destroyed the entire humanity. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We have given them a privilege. We have given them honor. Those deserve an honor. Those deserve to be, sanctified. In the hadith says, لَزَوَالُ الدُّنْيَا عَلَى اللَّهِ أَهْوَنُ مِنْ إِرَاقَةِ قَطْرَةِ دَمٍ فِي حَرَامٍ. If the entire universe goes into oblivion, get destroyed completely, in the eyes of Allah, it is less important than a single drop of innocent blood spilled on the ground. This is in the eye of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, according to the Quranic literature, to divine literature, it doesn't matter if you kill a single person or you kill entire humanity. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 32, it says, أَنَّهُ مَنْ قَتَلَ نَفْسًا بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ أَوْ فَسَادٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. It doesn't make any difference. If you kill a single innocent life, you perish it, or you kill multiple numbers. In the eyes of God, you have committed a despicable crime that cannot be washed away. My topic tonight, as I have said, brothers and sisters, is how we engender a human right. You see, those people, if had any dignified life, would they attack, a man in the caliber of Imam Hussein? Why? Why wouldn't they? The problem is that there is a lack of a human right. For whom? For the nation of the Prophet. For the nation of Islam that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considered them the best among the nations. كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You are considered to be the best among nations. And this is the treatment of the nation to the grandson of their Prophet. So, going back to our topic, which is the human right. You see, brothers and sisters, the abuse, the human right abuse, it has been a universal thing. Every nation are caught, every state, every hegemonic entity are caught sometime, complicit or killing the innocent life, destroying innocent lives. In fact, the last century, the 20th century, is considered to be the worst century in terms of human rights abuses. In that century, more than 30 wars took place. 2 of them were international, world wars. More than 30 wars were regional wars. According to scholars and authors, they say more than 170 million of people, were killed in the past century. Meaning that more than half of the US population today, they all, lost their life. They got killed senselessly. But in recent years, you see the talk of human rights. For example, in the United States, back in 1789, when they endorsed or ratified the 10 amendments to the Constitution, that is called, the Bill of Rights. But that was applicable to the Americans. Then back in 1948, when the United Nations, under the articles that are called the UDNH, which is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that took place back in 1948, and almost all states at the time, they have ratified this declaration. Since then, the Western countries, domestically, meaning inside their countries, they used ration and, intellect. They used their brain. The citizen, the average citizen, got their rights. Their rights had been promoted. There was strives toward equality, regarding the minorities here, for example, in this country, or even in Europe. The citizen rights have been, promoted since then. Of course, here we are talking only on a domestic level. When you look at the foreign policy, unfortunately, you see, it's as vicious as the third world countries. There is basically no change. They only use this word, human rights, against the countries that, they don't have a good term with them. They are not in a good term with them. When they want to harass a nation or a state, they say, you have the human rights abuse. But by themselves, they have a plenty of tyrannies, but since they are in good relationship with them, they let them off the hook. They never talk about them. So many tyrannies nowadays. It used to be back in the 70s in South America. Nowadays, full of Middle Eastern countries are completely, basically almost all of them, they have fringed upon the human rights. So many human rights abuses, but these countries who advocate a human right, they don't talk, anything against it. In fact, they are the ones who encourage them. Who give them those cluster bombs? Who give them those lethal weapons? Would Arab countries know how to make chemical bombs, for example? Or biological bombs? Who give it to them? Those tools for torture that those countries are using, from whom? Where are they manufactured? Do you know where they are manufactured? If you go and read the labels, you will see either in Paris or in Texas or in London and Manchester. Those are the ones who create those weapons, those tools to abuse a human right. They sell it to them, then they wait. Whoever deviates from their own, manual, then they will pick on and tell them, no, you've been caught abusing human rights. So only we are talking about domestic level if there has been any increase. But unfortunately, on the foreign policy, nothing has been changed. But when you look at Islam, brothers and sisters, you see that Islam as a system has put human right and justice as its cornerstone, a centerpiece. Here is the ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Hadid says that the entire purpose of dispatching so many prophets and messengers is for what? For one reason. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانِ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. For one reason only. So people can stand up for justice. So justice can prevail. This is the entire purpose of dispatching, so many prophets, so many divine people for the humanity, so justice can prevail. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exhorts the Muslims, saying that you show justice not only to your friends, not only to someone that, for example, you don't have any fight with, even to your enemy. Your enemy, you have to be fair and just with him. This is Surah Al-Ma'idah, Ayah 8. Says, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين لله شهداء بالقسط ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم على ألا تعدلوا اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. Even those that you have a problem with have attacked you, have caused injustice against you, have harassed you some way. Don't say that this guy is my enemy. Even if this guy is your enemy, you have to consider that you have to work with him rightly. This right is not only between me and my government or the ruler and his people. No, it is in everyday life. You have to put in mind that those people have right. And you have to deal with them accordingly, justly, in just manner. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you liable tomorrow on the day of judgment. Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Says that إن الله سبحانه قدم حقوق عباده على حقوقه. God has put in advance the right of his servants, meaning people, over his right. Meaning that tomorrow, if I have not performed my prayers, have not done my fasting, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, have drank, have deviated from the path that God has delineated for me, between me and him on personal level, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive me. Say, okay, this is my right and I forgive you for that. But if I have incurred injustice against someone else, some victim, some innocent person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would say that, there is no way. I wouldn't let you, I cannot concede that you can, go carry out with this, get away with this. You have to be, penalized. Therefore, the word mu'min, you see, brothers and sisters, unfortunately in our, customs and society, whom do we call mu'min? Someone who performs the prayers, who does the fasting, observes the fasting, go to Hajj. But we never ask of his dealing, how he's dealing with his brethren, with his sisters. Does he treat them well or not? Does she treat them well or not? Look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Wail is the worst place in Jahannam. There is nothing, underneath wail. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Why? وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Meaning that they are heedless. The prayer tells them you need to be just, you need to be fair, but they don't care. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. They harass people. They cause terrible things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, watch, this person is not a believer. This person is not a faithful. When he becomes faithful is when he, correct his relationship with the rest of the population. At that time you would consider that this, when his dealing is correct, when his dealing is straight. Now, when you compare the Islamic rights, what Islam has brought of rights to people, compare it to this universal declaration of a human rights, you will see big differences. Number one is the timing. Again, we said that this universal declaration of human rights took place when? When was it? In 1948. Go back to Islam. Look who was the first one who articulated human rights. You will see it was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. In his treatise, in his letter to his ruler in Egypt, Malik al-Ashtar, he writes to him, tells him, وَأُوصِيكَ بِالرَّعِيَّةِ وَأَسْتَوْصِي بِهِمْ خَيْرًا وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ سَبُعًا ضَارِيًا. I advise you, I admonish you to be, in a good term with your people, with the population. وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ سَبُعًا ضَارِيًا. Do not become like a voracious animal that you attack them and rip them apart. فإن الناس صنفان إما أخ لك في الدين أو نظيرك في الخلق. There are only two people. Either he's your brother in religion or he's similar to you in creation. Does Ali ibn Abi Talib talk about Muslim and non-Muslim? Would he say this man is a Shia and the other one is not Shia? Or this man is a Muslim and the other one is not Muslim? Or this man believes in God and the other one does not believe in God? In Ali ibn Abi Talib's terms, neither of those exist. He said that people are equal. This guy, either he's your brother, your sister in religion, and then you have to respect his right. If he doesn't adhere to what you adhere, at least he's similar to your creation. He has exactly the same emotion, the same body, the same feeling as you do have. There is no difference between you. That's why, brothers and sisters, no wonder that the Human Rights Commission, and this is in 2002, according to the UN Committee of Human Rights, who have issued a resolution back in 2002, they say this. They say that Ali ibn Abi Talib, the fourth Khalifa, they say the fourth Khalifa of Islam, Ali ibn Abi Talib is considered the fairest governor who appeared during human history. You mean throughout the entire human history, they say Ali ibn Abi Talib turned to be the fairest one. Allahumma salli ala, deserve a big salawat. In 19, and this was for the Arab Human Development Report. They issued this report and sent it to the Arab countries. Told them, this is the ruler, this is the one that you say, he's your Khalifa. At least follow your Khalifa. In 1997, Kofi Annan, at that time was the Secretary General of the United Nations. He says that a human rights principle can be found in the teaching of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. You will extract a human rights from, the teachings of Ali ibn Abi Talib. This is the first source. The second source, brothers and sisters, Al-Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zayn al-Abidin. He writes a treatise describing 50 rights. 50 rights. Start with the right of God, right of the Prophet, right of the ruler, right of the parents, right of the body, rights of the organs of the body, rights of the neighbor, rights of the relatives, rights of the children. 50 rights, the Imam alayhi salam described them. Tell them you have to behold. Be careful when you talk to them. Whom? Ali ibn al-Hussein was the victim of Karbala, was the victim of a tragedy of Karbala. He is supposed to be very bitter. He should seek revenge, vengeance. Say, I have been deprived from my right. I have to kill people. I have to, bring them to justice. But none of that, Ali ibn al-Hussein says. He says that those are the rights that you need to follow. When did that happen? After Karbala. 1400 years ago, our Imams have been talking about human rights. Nowadays, is it too much? If the United Nations issues, some sort of resolutions about the human rights, Islam has advanced 1400 years before that. So that is the first difference. The second difference, brothers and sisters, Islam's rights are very inclusive. Islam tells you cannot do backbiting. Ghiba is haram. Defaming, slandering the other part, even if he's your enemy, you cannot do it. You should respect him. Anyone who's caught slandering, defaming others, he will be lashed. 80 lashes he will be receiving for making an allegation. If you make an allegation, Islam told him, why did you do this? Either you need to bring 4 witnesses to make sure that, your claim is right. If you cannot, then there are 80 lashes are waiting for you. Why? Because the personal integrity, the reputation of people is as much as important as their body. The same way that you cannot attack their body, you cannot attack their reputation. You have to respect it. One day a woman came to the house of the Prophet during the month of Ramadan, and she started, backbiting, making ghibah. The Prophet said, give her some food. Bring her some food. She said, Ya Rasulullah, I am fasting. He said, what kind of fasting is this? You are eating the flesh of your sister, a dead sister. You are eating her flesh. You might as well eat. What are you waiting for? Which kind of religion is this? Which kind of faith is this? You come to masjid, you pray, and then you backbite people? And then you expect yourself to be, saved by Allah, and you are considered to be faithful and Muslim? What kind of, logic is this? So number one is this. It is regarding the backbiting. Even more, Islam tells you cannot insult religious icons. Others, you cannot attack them. You cannot insult them even if they are idol worshippers. Remember 2 days ago, or it was last night, that I talked about this? Even if the person is worshipping idol, do not curse the idol in front of him. وَلَا تَسُبُّ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ. You cannot curse them. Why? فَيَسُبُّ اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. They return the curse to you. Even the religious icons are protected. Do we have this kind of thing, for example, in this country? How many times they bash the Prophet, peace be upon him? How many times they bash other prophets, other religious, icons and religious figures? This is not protected by the law. When you tell them, it tells you freedom of expression, people can express themselves. Well, people have the freedom of expression, but not at the expense of sanctity and, sacredness of other religions. You have to be respectful. Islam tells you cannot do this. You have to respect them. Even more, brothers and sisters, after your big and loud salawat. When you look at this universal declaration of a human rights, so from beginning till end talks about a human being, tell you human has to do such and such, they are entitled for such, they are free to do such and such. But which a human? Life a human. Once they are dead, everything, is closes. You can do whatever you want. In fact, if you are a relative of a deceased, you can take their body and cremate them, burn them. To human rights declaration, the important thing is when the human being is alive. But when you look at Quran, when you look at Islam, tells you no, a believer is sanctified even after his death. A citizen is sanctified. You cannot take, his body organs. You have heard probably nowadays, the Israeli government, those victims, those Palestinian victims who have been killed, they would go and take their body organs, supervised by the government. The government would, supervise this transfer of the body organs. Some tell you under which right you do this. You are not entitled to do this one. You cannot, unless maybe he says that I am willing to donate my organ at that time, you can do that. But without his permission, without his, consent, you cannot do this. Unfortunately, I have heard that so many Muslims, so many Shia and followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam die in this country. Their children, in order to save some money, because if they go and bury them, they have to pay $5,000, $10,000. But in order to save that little money that, they have left, they go and cremate the body. That is the worst thing, brothers and sisters, that anyone can do. Islam does not condone those. In fact, it is against it. So you see how Islam is very inclusive when it comes to the rules. Maybe you tell me, okay, those are the rules. Those are all written in the books. But what about the practice? Do Islamic governments have such do they abide by the human rights laws? Have you ever seen any government from the beginning, right after the demise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, until now? Have you seen any Islamic entity or Islamic government respect the human rights? Honestly, I don't have an answer. I should tell you, yes. We don't have such, country or such government who have respected the human rights. Right after the demise of the Prophet, injustice started. And the first one who received injustice was Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, who when he was taken by force, by coercion, to pledge allegiance to the ruler, it was against his own will. He was, he has faced threat, and they have, according to some narrations, they even have carried out their threat and attacked Ali ibn Abi Talib and his household, to do this. Where is the problem then? Should we only blame the governments? No, brothers and sisters. We have to be realistic. We have to be practical. We cannot always point to the, to the zalim, the oppressor, and say, because those belong to Bani Umayyah and they are the ones who are doing. No. Unfortunately, sometimes if you look throughout history, you see some adherents to the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They also have been caught, doing injustice to their fellow citizens. It has not to do with that. What it has to do, in my opinion, there are two reasons, brothers and sisters. Number one is the state of feeling of Muslims themselves. We are not up to the, to the human rights. We ourselves, we violate our own human rights. We believe in God, we believe in principles. We believe in Shahada only by mind, by brain. But inside heart, we don't have much feeling, We care less. We don't pay much attention to those facts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remind us, say those A'rab, they say, قَالُوا آمَنَّا, they say that we are faithful. But in fact, they are not faithful. They don't have faith. قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا أَسْلَمْنَا. You have brought Islam, and this Islam is by word. وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلِ الْإِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Islam still has not penetrated your hearts. Whenever iman and faith and the rule of God have penetrated your heart, at that time you will see, you will see the effect of it. For how many years the Prophet used to give his message to people, preach people? For 23 years. How many companions started from early time until the demise of the Prophet? Many. Too many. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلْ انقلبتم على أعقابكم. You revert back again. Why? Why, if the iman has, gone inside their heart, why they revert? Because Islam didn't penetrate their heart. Islam only stayed, in their mind, only by actions. That's why. Why would we wonder the tragedy of Karbala took place? Because the same barbarian, the same vicious nomads during the Jahiliyyah, those were exactly the same people who killed Imam Hussein. Only by words they would say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah and Muhammad Rasulullah. But in reality, nothing. They were Jahiliyyah, they were mushrik. Islam has not penetrated their heart. Whenever faith penetrates their heart, they believe inside. At that time you see things will change. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. It is this little heart. Whenever you change it, whenever you fix it, at that time, you will see things will changing. But as long as we as a nation, as individuals, we have not adapted to the Islamic system, obviously such kind of change would never take place. We are, as Muslims, we are so ignorant about the right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mandated. Do I know the right of my spouse, for example? Do I know the right of my parents? Do I know the right of my children? Do I know the right of my neighbor? Do I know the right of my client that I deal with? The customer that I deal with? Sometimes I hear news that I get shocked. A wife goes to the court, asks for divorce. Why? Did her husband cheat on her? No. Did he stop giving her money? No. Spending so much. What did he do? Because he paid khums. How did he end up paying khums? Why he doesn't take me to Hawaii, for example? Why he doesn't spend it on my jewelry? Can you imagine the absurdity of this? And the same thing you can say about the husband sometimes. When they seek injustice against the spouse. Of course, when we in our dealing, we don't respect, we don't have mercy on each other. You would expect someone else, a foreigner or a governor will have a respect on us? Definitely that would not take place. Whenever I have a good dealing with my customers, when I deal with them, rightly, correctly, at that time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put mercy on me. Don't you see here in the US, many companies, they tell you since 1890, for example, since 1930. What does this mean? Do you know what that means? It means that we have gained the trust of the customer, meaning that we are trustworthy. We dealt with the customer in a transparency. Therefore, we stayed in the market since 100 years. Tell me which company in Middle East can say this? Which government can say that we are so? Which constitution we have that have lasted for 50 years? Why we have such kind of a problem? Because we as individuals, we don't have respect for a human right. The second, and I have to bring my speech to conclusion. I am sorry, Dr. Taqiyya, I always take of your time. My apologies. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. It is the culture which include both the government and the people. Unfortunately, our culture in Islamic countries, it is not the culture of human rights, the culture of law. Here, people are dealt by law. They tell you by law you have to pay taxes. By law you have to, buckle up. By law you have to speed this much. Now it doesn't matter who you are. Be it you are the president or an ordinary person. Everybody has to abide by the law. It is rule of law. Simple. As simple as that. No matter how you are. Maybe you can find loopholes and finding some lawyers and attorneys, they can play with the law. But eventually, this law is introduced to everyone, including the president. The president himself has to pay taxes. But when you go back to our countries, what do you have? You don't have rule of law. You have rule of influence. Meaning you should have influence. If you have influence, you are rightful. You have the right of passage. They tell you, بفرما, تفضل. But when you are, weak, when you are an ordinary citizen, then they bring you all kind of mistakes that you have committed. First of all, you have negated the Constitution. Second, you didn't abide by the Quran. Third, you didn't do such and such and such, and you are entitled for execution. Execution. As simple as that. Why? Because we have emphasized on personalities only. This person has the right. Other people don't have the right. Has become the rule of influence. Whenever we change this rule to rule of law, at that time you will see the benefit of it. Ali ibn Abi Talib was adopting the rule of law, would say, those are human. Those are people, no matter what they're standing against me or with me. As long as they are human and they are citizens, their rights are respected. You know the story. One of the Khawarij, a great leader of the Khawarij, his name is Kharrit. I don't know if I am pronouncing correctly. This man, Kharrit, or Ifrit, came to Ali ibn Abi Talib and told him, look, from tomorrow I would not pray behind you. I would not stay in town with you, and I will desert you, leave you. Challenging Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali ibn Abi Talib told him, okay, number one, I will not stop giving you your allowance. You still need to get your allowance. Second, I would not prevent you from entering masjid. You come to masjid and pray with us. Third, I would not fight you as long as you do not fight me. As long as you do not constitute danger by resorting to violence. Stay as a citizen, I respect you. This is Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. In the battle of Siffin, the people of Muawiyah, the army of Muawiyah, the first thing that they did, they cut the road to river to the soldiers of Ali ibn Abi Talib. They stopped, they didn't have water. They came and complained to Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Imam laughed at them, told them, you grown-up men, soldiers, complain and grieve because the soldiers of Muawiyah have, cut you through from water. Do you know why? Because your swords are thirsty. First, let your swords get irrigated, quench the thirst of your swords, then at that time you will be irrigated, you will find water. They attack the enemy, they kick the enemy all the way from the river bank. When they wanted to do the same thing, Ali ibn Abi Talib told them no. You cannot treat them in the same way that they have treated you. Water, it belongs to everyone. To Muawiyah and to Ali ibn Abi Talib. To the enemy, to the foe, and to the friend. All have to drink water. You cannot subjugate them due to this fact because they cannot catch, the water. But in return, what did Bani Umayyah do? In Ashura, what did they do? I just told you the story today in the Friday prayers. Hussein ibn Ali, when he met the people of Kufa by Al-Hurr ibn Yazid, who were more than 1,000, they were all exhausted, tired and thirsty. And there was any water around them. Imam Hussein could easily have killed them all. But he gave them water. One of them, who was the last one, was Ali ibn Tahan al-Muharibi. The Imam by himself fed him water, gave him water. He drank water. Now on the day of Ashura, when Imam Hussein collapsed from his horse, on the ground, asking for water, telling them, Ya qawm, wallah, inni atsha, I am so thirsty. Now one of the soldiers, he said, I went to get some water. Ali ibn Tahan stopped me, told him, wait, what are you doing? I told him, congratulations, you won the battle. The man is dying. Just a few minutes, he's asking for water. He said, La wallah, la yashrab hatta yarid al-hami. He would not drink water until the
he dies. They left his his body and all his companions for 3 days and night under the sweltering heat of Karbala, exposed without any cover. On the 3rd day, Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam comes. As he comes, he notices the clan of Bani Asad are watching. He tells them, what is going on? What are you doing here? They say, we came just to watch, to see the scenery. Imagine the body of Hujjatullah, the body of the infallible, has been reduced to a scene. People would see him, would look at him. They told him, who are you? He said, I am the son of this victim. I am Ali ibn al-Hussein. They said, Ya ibn Rasulullah, we are here to help you. We want to gather those pieces and get them all buried. He said, okay, start with me. Help me. They gathered all the bodies, except one body. The Imam told them, no, this is mine. It is my duty. I am the one who will collect this body. You just stay aside, but just give me a bari, give me a piece of rug that I wrap those pieces of bodies. He grabbed the body of his father. He put it in this piece, in this sheet, and those people would collect the body parts. He told them, go search. There is a digit missing of the Imam. They went and found the digit. They brought it to the Imam. He said, I am missing the heart. The heart of the Imam is not there. They said, there is a shiny thing over there. As he looks, he sees that the arrow has pierced through the heart of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. He breaks the heart. He put it together. Now the body is headless. What he would do? Imagine in our culture, when the father dies, the children, the sons, the daughters gather. When they say goodbye, they place a kiss, they imprint a kiss right on the forehead of the deceased. Imam Zayn al-Abidin has placed a kiss right on the throat of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. He said, Ya Abba, you have been killed necessarily. At that time, they tell him that there is a huge body we have found for a hero right on the river bank. We take part, other part falls apart. Can you help us? He said, yeah, leave that part. Leave that body. That body is for my uncle Al-Abbas ibn Ali, Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Leave it, I will take care of it. He brings the Imam alayhi salam and buries him. The narrator say when he buries him, all of a sudden a faint voice comes from his, from the throat, says, Bunayya Ali, wassid Abdullah al-Radhi ala sadri. Put my little Abdullah right on my chest. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Al-Ali al-Azim, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. Everyone, السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته.